I don't know. Okay, the Pawn Stars video. Here we go.
In 2009,
this is the bizarre culture of Pawn Stars, baby.
History Channel made the bold choice to air a reality show filmed in Nevada entirely about a pawn store and the lives of its employees. While seeming like a leap of faith at the time, in just a few short years, Pawn Stars would become an international phenomenon. So widely known that I'm guessing many of you weren't even aware that it was something made by the History Network. The show focuses mainly on the 3 generations of the Harrison family. The old man, his son Rick, and Rick's son Corey. Alongside those 3, Corey's lifelong best friend Chumlee will also hang around, personified in wildly...
Am I crazy, or do I feel like what he's saying right now in this video is like, sounds weird? Because of the previous video broke my brain. Is anyone else also feeling the same way? That's why I didn't want to fucking watch it. Dude, you guys fucked my brain, dude. What if I was perma stuck? And with like broken English forever? Oh no. What if I'm doing that right now?
Different ways depending on what episode you're watching. Throughout the show, each employee will meet with various people visiting the shop, who typically either want to sell various items or pawn them. They haggle, they argue, experts are brought in, people give in or walk away, that's the show. Pawn Stars might seem like something that could easily be wiped away or forgotten about mere seconds after the credits roll, but the show was such a massive phenomenon that it really changed that subgenre of TV. And I think it's absolutely worth revisiting, even if it's just for a short little video like this. Before we dive in, a big thanks to Raycon for helping out by on earbud to comms. I my memory of that WIN watched much ON. So when I started writing this video, I realized that I hadn't watched much of Pawn Stars since I was a little kid. And since my memory of that time is pretty hazy on account of the booze, I decided to rewatch it from the start. And what I found was very surprising. You see, usually when people start talking about this show, the first thing they have to say is how much it's changed. When it first started, it was authentic and real, and now it's just nothing but a representation of the phony nature of manufactured reality crap. And there is some validity to that hot take. But it's clear that from Season 1, Episode 1, the show is oversaturated with moments which are clearly put in just for the sake of the camera being there.
Fine, I will go to the eye doctor if you 2 turkeys get off of my back.
I think what's really happened with Pawn Stars is that a majority of its fans started watching when they were kids and couldn't tell that it's fake. And when they became adults and could tell, they thought that the show had changed. Not to say that there hasn't been a shift in the format, but we'll get back to that later. If I could compare Pawn Stars Season 1 to any show, oddly enough, I think I would go with The Office, which I know there are 700 video essays about The Office and 10 rewatch podcasts. I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing about it. But in my mind, Pawn Stars was an attempt to create a show much like The Office, except on a quarter of the budget. The goofy cast, the hilarious weekly mishaps, the mockery of hierarchical capitalist systems which create a toxic workplace, yet seem to always come back around to creating a profitable business model, it's all there. The main difference between the two is that The Office is a scripted sitcom that tries to emulate a documentary reality show, and Pawn Stars is a documentary reality show that
is this video entirely about how fucking Pawn Stars is fake or something? Because we know. And this is like, this guy is basically the epitome of fucking chat, where chat always, like the worst chatter rather, the worst chatter that comes in whenever we're watching Pawn Stars and having fun, who comes in and is like, this is all fake, you know? It's like, why do you want to fucking ruin the fun? We're just having fun. Like, why can't we just fucking celebrate Book Mommy and think that these are real deals? Like, it's fake, you know? Oh, thanks, man. Well, you just showed us how big your fucking brain was.
Tries to emulate a scripted sitcom. The A-plot of a lot of these early episodes, featuring visitors buying and selling items, are legitimate to some extent. But essentially, all of what I would call the B-plot of these episodes is entirely fake. And what gives this away is primarily how none or few of them have a long-term effect on the show. They are erased from the collective memory of the characters and entirely to reset the status quo by the time of the next couch gag. For instance, in Season 1, Episode 6, Rix hires his 17-year-old niece as a favor to her mother. Corey is then told that if he can train his cousin to work in the shop, he'll be given a raise. We're then shown a series of scenes revolving around that story, ultimately ending with her successfully passing the test. Corey gets his raise, she proves she can do the job, the credits roll, she is never seen again. In another story, a few seasons later, Rick becomes convinced that the cavalier nature of how his employees speak to one another—
Oh my god, it's like that one guy. Bro, you guys remember that one dude who like fucking beefed up the price of a artifact, of a coin? One guy who was like a random employee walks over, gives a way too nice of an appraisal to a coin. He's never seen again. Yeah. I think they literally fired him immediately.
Is affecting business, and calls in a sensitivity trainer to try and build a healthy atmosphere. What follows feels like a series of skits from It's Always Sunny, as the trainer is stunned by how far gone the characters are from having a healthy work environment.
You got a lot of peacock in you. Yeah. A ton of peacock.
You have a lot of peacock in you, bro.
So usually you're shown a hackneyed bit that pulls the curtain back by seeming too irreverent and non-concrete. But other times there will be a segment that makes you hope to God that the show is staged. Like in Season 1, Episode 9, they set up that one of the female employees has been habitually late to work. So the old man says, "As punishment for your tardiness, we're gonna let the fat one sexually harass you for our personal amusement."
What the fuck? Is that fucking real? What? What is happening? Oh my fucking god, dude. Oh, this is on the History Channel. How the fuck did we literally not see any of the awful shit that goes on in this show? Okay, even if it's fucking scripted, that is a gross way to script something, dude. What the fuck?
Everybody knows Chum loves peaches. And we're talking about the girl, not the fruit.
In Season 1, there's also, no joke, a clip show episode. The characters sit around remembering purchases that they made earlier in the season entirely to make an extra episode without really producing more content. Literally, I cannot imagine this show being more of an overt sitcom without executive producer Greg Daniels popping up at the end of every episode. But one thing I can certainly admit is that what I call the A-plot in certain episodes seems pretty legitimate by comparison, at least in the early seasons, which we're primarily talking about right now. The frustration and anger of many of these visitors, previously convinced that they had something valuable, proves to be far too real in comparison to the wooden performances of the B-plot. For instance, this man, who has purchased what he thought was an $800 historical gun, only to figure out that it's a cheap replica worth $75.
Yeah, so, okay, maybe the thing is a fake. My wife was pissed when I bought this gun. Now she's really gonna kill me.
Which, by the way, anytime some goofball war collector comes in,
is that guy fake? Like, is he actually... we watched this, but I thought it was real.
He will go out of his way to mention at some point that he hates his wife.
You either gotta get rid of the gun or the wife, and...
Oh man, some people would choose to get rid of the wife.
I've had her a long time. She's paid off.
Do you use this for protection?
Yes, my wife has a problem sometimes with me.
Dude, I love this part of the show. This is the best part of the show. They're so bad. They're like, yeah, my bitch wife.
Man, Hasan.
She's making me sell this. I need to remake the kitchen. It's so stupid. That's why it's good. He gets so triggered by the show. No, that part is funny. Yes, the stupidity of sexism is actually fucking funny. That's what the funny part is. It's so played out and so dumb that it's funny again. That's the joke.
One never knows.
Okay.
The YouTuber does not like the show, it seems like, but
pretty much every time. One thing I really started to notice is that as the show goes on, the commentary on the pawn shop and the tone of the people visiting starts to swiftly change. Pawn Stars first began filming after the Great Recession of 2007 and 2008. And because of that, many of the guests visiting would be very open that they were selling these things because their lives were falling apart and they just needed any cash to make it through the month. This is especially true in cases of people pawning their items. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with the practice, pawning is when one of these shops essentially loans you money and in exchange you give them an equally valuable item. If you can pay back the loan, you get the item back, but if not, they get to keep it and resell it. Pawning is important because without that business strategy, a shop like this is just a really douchey, expensive Goodwill. It's kind of a scummy business practice, pretty much like most loans, and is built to take advantage of people who don't really have a lot of options. And it's super strange how these early episodes juxtapose these fat idiots doing stupid shit alongside horribly sad stories about why their customers are taking out loans.
Okay, Davey takes out loans. He's a fucking idiot, though. Like, why did he say juxtapose? What does that... okay, we're just gonna move on from that one, but... juxtapose, Hasan level pronunciation. First of all, my pronunciation is fucking on point usually, okay? Fuck you. Yeah, that's Davey Deals, dude. Notable for fucking being horrible at doing deals.
They probably won't be able to pay back. And how much of their lives have been totally torn apart by the recession.
Would you take $1,500?
You try to take the food out of my wife's mouth, you know, but...
Yeah, and put it in mine.
This is starkly different from how Pawn Stars presents those same things only a few seasons later. First of all, the act of pawning on screen stops happening pretty quickly. Probably because it was always super depressing whenever it would happen. And second, the show pretty quickly just starts being about finding cool stuff and showing it on camera, with an active attempt to not let the audience think of the sad stories there might otherwise be behind all.
That was... Wait, is this the one that they fucked up?
Of these people coming in.
No, it's not the cart.
Famously,
I still get triggered thinking about that one cart that they just... where the fucking recreation guy just literally took and absolutely just built a new cart and was like, here, I recreated it for you. I renovated this cart. And it was a new wagon, the ammo cart. Yeah, it was just a new one. He 100% gave him a new one.
Episode of the show features Pat the NES Punk bringing in several ultra rare cartridges and attempting to sell them for upwards of 30 grand. Another episode is just about Star Wars collectibles, with several extraordinarily valuable items being presented, from original props to a functioning Boba Fett rocket launcher prototype. And with Rick just randomly choosing not to fight for these items despite his clear ability to sell them for a very good price. And I think an episode...
Wait, is he mad that, like... Yeah, a big chunk of the show is just, like, people who want to show off and flex their items, and the show gets to talk about the history behind, like a piece of Americana or whatever. Okay, this guy's just fucking... This guy's just a nerd and he's mad. Okay, that's what it feels like. And apparently there's elements of the show to be mad at. For sure. That I did not know of, but...
Episodes like these, it's obvious that the guest has no intention of selling these things. Their sole and only motivation is wanting to be on TV. And even if they want to sell these things, it actually doesn't make sense for them to do it on the show. Rick will usually ask for less than half of what he can sell an item for to make a profit, will be very open about the fact that he has to rip people off to make his business model work, and at the same time, being on the show is essentially free advertising for the product you're trying to sell. The smartest thing to do, really, is to go on the show, have the value of the item confirmed, wait for the episode to air, and then just sell it on eBay or to a private collector, because selling it to the store means almost certainly getting screwed over.
Yeah.
It is somewhat satisfying, on the other hand, in the few instances where the characters on the show have been defrauded themselves, spending a ridiculous amount of money on items which turn out to be totally fake. I know the losses are so small that it doesn't touch their bottom line, but I still find something so oddly cathartic about it. Of course, in a way, I feel that way because the show is designed to make me feel that way. Its frustrating elements alongside the morons presented in the show are some of the things that make it so unbelievably bingeable. But I would posit the most notable thing about Pawn Stars is actually the massive effect that it had on the market. While Rick Harrison openly fought to make the show because he knew television was the greatest form of advertising, I'm not sure anyone expected it to become the household smash hit that it ended up being, in some ways transforming the pawn shop into a must-see for any Las Vegas tourist. This meant almost immediately that the people in the show could no longer actually work at the shop, because it would become flocked with hyperfans trying to get photos with these pseudo-celebrities. To film the show today, parts of the store are roped off and reserved. Extras are selected to hang around in the backgrounds of scenes, and visitors are then vetted ahead of time to interact with the cast. This is one of the reasons that guests have become less authentic over.
We have the same show in the UK, except we call it Antiques Roadshow, and it's just Tories showing off stuff their grandparents stole from people of color. Wait, is that what Antiques Roadshow is? We have to watch that now. Oh God, I love conservatives who shamelessly fucking talk about their heritage of stealing from people of color. Oh, it's in the US as well. Okay. Because people were telling me to watch the US one because it's more serious.
over time, literally including episodes where people like Steve Carell have guest starred. It's also why the experts brought in
my man
seem to immediately have an insane amount of research done when the narrative presents the gap between them being told about the item and arriving as just a few minutes. Also, all the characters were on iCarly once. I thought about talking about this in more detail, but anyone who's been watching for a couple years knows that I'm incapable of talking about iCarly without making half the video about it. I should probably just do a standalone iCarly video and never talk about it again. The overwhelming crossover success of the Pawn Stars has led to many stations producing content which is pretty damn similar in retrospect. You look at something like Brothers in Arms, and it's pretty clear that without Pawn Stars, this format just wouldn't be so perfected. Meanwhile, other channels have attempted to make their own Pawn Store shows, and History Channel has attempted to make numerous spin-offs.
American Made. What the fuck is this, dude? I loved it. This show looks crazy. What is
attempted to make their own.
What is going on here? Can someone explain to me what this is?
Pawn Store shows, and History Channel has attempted to make numerous spin-offs that no one wants or asked for, like Cajun Pawn Stars, Pawn Stars UK, Pawn Stars Australia, and Pawnography, a weird, obscure attempt to make a game show starring the cast.
I'm gonna go with Mr. Potato Head. They actually used a potato to begin with.
A real potato. You actually had to supply the potato?
Yes, I believe it. Yeah.
Wow. And kids bitch today about like the PlayStation.
Was this made by Channel?
Oh no, that's what happens when you let fucking conservatives actually try to make their own offshoot success story.
Awesome. So as you can guess, these four dudes moving from being pawn employees to legitimate paid actors and celebrities has significantly changed their lives. But no one more so than the one, the only, Chum-Li. I expect no one working on the show expected their goofy side character to become the most beloved and worshipped part of the cast. But in a way, it makes sense, because he's typically the only one designed to actually be likable. The other guys are charming, but only Chum-Li comes across as a person you would actually want in your life. Which is precisely why he's a meth addict. And didn't he go to jail or something? I love Chum-Li so much. That's Meth Andy, dude. Manufactured world of Pawn Stars often turns him into a straight man.
You cheated right in the bedroom, Chumley?
As I've mentioned, this leads to a massive inconsistency between seasons in how they want you to see the Chummeister. In some episodes, he talks like Kevin Malone and doesn't know who Isaac...
Okay, dude, we might fuck around with UK Antiques Roadshow. Oh my... Wait. You got a fucking telly license for that? You can't be fucking restreaming Antiques Roadshow, bruv. Do you have a telly license? Do you have a telly license? Oh, fuck off. This guy who doesn't have a fucking telly license is restreaming. He's restreaming the Tories, bruv. I'll tell fucking Boris. I'll tell Boris. I just turned so... We watched too much. We watched too much fucking accents. In this show, they don't buy the items. They only appraise them. How very racist.
Newton is. And in other episodes, he's trying to convince the shop owners that they need to buy Banksy art and is a connoisseur of modern taste. Chum is also, notably, the smartest person to capitalize on the show's popularity, starting his own company to sell novelty merch surrounding his character and even a candy store across the street from the pawn shop. Because of this, it's been said that Chum-Li has become an outright multi-millionaire, outflanking the others in business smarts and competency to some extent. And as much as his stupidness is clearly a facade, so is his cutesy demeanor. In 2016, Chum-Li's house was raided because of an investigation into sexual assault allegations. During that raid, police found crystal meth, marijuana, Xantax, and multiple illegal firearms. The copious amount of drugs alongside odd things like scales suggested, at least to police, that he was a drug dealer on the side, and was potentially using his work as
a literal businessman, okay? You see how the American government comes after you when you're an industrious person of color? Yeah, my man was grinding, dude. He was like, it's not enough that I've built multiple businesses off this fucking show. I have to sell meth on the side.
And side business.
What color? I'm just kidding. I don't know what he seems pretty white, but I just think it's funny to say he's a POC because his name is Chum-Li.
As a mild front, which, gotta say, pretty ballsy move to use a candy store as a drug front. Seems really obvious in hindsight. More notable to many, they also discovered what was apparently called the Chum Chum Room, which is where he would do coke and have strippers over to get his chum on.
You got a girlfriend?
Chum-Li ended up taking a plea bargain, meaning that his record shows a misdemeanor instead of any felony charges. This is notable because, from what I've been told, History Channel employees are forbidden from having felony charges. So if he had been found guilty, it would have potentially been the end of the show. Now that I finished telling you about all this, I'm realizing it's maybe not super important to the discussion.
LOL! Dude, he had Rick come over and tell the judge, yeah, I'm gonna give you a misdemeanor for that. That's as high as I can go. And the judge was like, oh! And he got stun locked into fucking giving him a misdemeanor charge, dude. Oh, you think there's a felony charge here? Yeah, misdemeanor's as high as I can go.
Of the program, but I would have been doing you a disservice if I didn't tell you about the Chum Chum Room. Pawn Stars is a really weird program, especially when watching it in order. It exists exclusively to advertise an industry which I'm not overly fond of, and in a way, it's kind of gross to see this business bloom in a post-recession nation because of its purpose in prospering off of the suffering of others. But there's something undeniably intoxicating about the characters and how their stories are told, even if I know it's all fake from day one. And I can't decide if that means that I'm buying into overt propaganda, or if I'm a stuck-up asshole for even worrying about it in the first place. But hey, I think you and I can cut ourselves a deal in another discussion by talking about
That's it? Is there more to it, or?
A big thanks.
Okay, that was interesting. Also, I ordered chicken tendies, and Dave's Hot Chicken fucked me. They fucked me. I'm so devastated. I never got
pervert.
I never got an entire half of my order came only. I am truly devastated. Worst day of my life.